All right, everybody, it is Monday night, and you know what that means, that we're here live with Fellowship of Christian Athletes Coaches Corner. And Billy Graham said it best when he said one coach can impact more lives in 1 year than most people can in their entire lifetime. At FCA, we believe the two most important words on earth are coach said. On any playground, any college, any high school, middle school, any club, anywhere sports are played, coach said can have a huge impact. And at FCA, we take that seriously. And at Carson-Newman University, coach said means something special. Being immersed in that staff with clinics for the last 20 years, I can truly say you're going to be tickled to death with our guest tonight, Coach Mike Clowney, a product of that university and the head football coach now. Coach Clowney, thank you so much for joining us on FCA's Coach's Corner tonight.
Appreciate it, BJ, man. I'm excited about being here.
Absolutely. We're tickled to death to have you, Coach. Well, let's start out. Introduce us to your family. Talk to us some about your family, Coach.
My immediate family right now is me and my wife, Carrie. Carrie and I have been married right at 13 years. We've got a 10-year-old son, Preston, right, that we're raising right now. My wife's a school teacher, and I'm a football coach. So Carrie and I actually met here and were friends for a long time, and then fought for a long time, and then wound up, Lord kind of put us together so we can keep fighting and loving on each other. But Carrie is someone that's been very special to me, just a dear friend, like I say, since we've been here. And for us to be together, raise our kid together, it's been something that's like really been special. The biggest thing about Carrie is she always kind of encouraged me and motivated me spiritually. You know, they say behind every good man is a good woman, and that's definitely the case at our home. My son, Preston, doesn't play football. He's a basketball player and a golfer. And so I've learned that, you know, you can kind of teach life outside of football too. That's where a couple times I always felt like the only way I can really teach my kid how to live life is for him to play football. And every now and then we get on the golf course and I'm caddying, and boy, there's some real good life experiences out there on the golf course with him. Growing up, you know, it was me, my mom, my dad. I've got my sister. My dad, mom separated probably when I was in the 5th grade. And that was a real kind of turning point in my life. Kind of had those guys there, always kind of had a shelter around me, you know, with the two of them. But, you know, I always tell everybody, you know, with my family situation, my dad was a great dad. He just probably wasn't the best husband there was out there. And so we experienced a lot of things as a family, you know, some abuse stuff that we kind of went through. And one day I'll never forget, my mom came and told me, it's like, hey, we're going to have to leave. We're going to have to move. And so I remember packing up during the day while my dad was at work and moving in with my aunt. And one of the toughest things I've ever told was, hey, if your dad comes knock on the door, you're not allowed to answer it. You know, I always tell everybody, fortunately that day he didn't come knocking, because I don't know if I could have not answered the door. He, like I say, he's been a great dad to me. You know, he and my mom kind of had some problems, and I know there are people out there that kind of experienced that. So I always kind of share that. You know, I've never one day questioned my dad's love for me. You know, like I say, he's always been the man of integrity, guy that been in the military. He's a 3rd-degree black belt. You know, I learned a lot of things growing up, you know, from my dad because of the things that I was kind of able to experience with him as a young boy. And so I went through a little period there to where, you know, I had dad, and then all of a sudden I didn't. And probably I talked to one of our kids the other day, one of the toughest things that, you know, we did talk, and that's where he's like, you know, mom didn't want me there. Like, you know, you're going to have to be the man in the family. And as a 5th grader, I took that serious and kind of forced myself to grow up real fast. Started off thinking a man was a guy that kind of got in trouble and did things the wrong way, and then was able to kind of, you know, get to high school and get around coaches that taught me and pushed me to kind of do things the right way. That's where you'll hear part of my stories. I always tell everybody high school, you know, football saved my life and college football saved my soul, you know, because those coaches, what you talked about with Billy Graham earlier, you know, that is so true. You know, some of the best men in my life have been my coaches.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Coach. That's just a testimony that is so powerful with the kids that you come in contact with and coach, because that helps you relate. As you know, that's an epidemic in our society. is like Tony Evans says, we got to have some kingdom men raising kingdom kids. And I think that's a big quality you have, Coach. So what's your why? Why'd you get into this business? Why coaching?
Kind of back to what we just finished talking about. I just realized the difference my coaches made in my life. It's kind of, you go back and talk about, in high school, I played for Shell Dula, who won several state championships down in South Carolina. We were able to win one, played in 2 semifinal games. And, coming to Carson-Newman, being here with Coach Sparks, being in playoffs every year, and then playing for national championship my senior year here, we were always able to kind of have success on the field. And that success on the field kind of like made me a little hungry for what made that work? Like, what were the ingredients to that success on the field? And then I kind of saw that a lot of those same ingredients were like really key to kind of being successful in life. If my coaches hadn't, I always, like with all the racial stuff going on, I share this story here a lot. I remember in high school being in auto mechanics class because my entire family were auto mechanics, and that's what I thought I was going to do. And so coming out of that class, one day we were on the bus, we're doing a trip, and there's a guy on the bus that called me the N-word. And so I sat there and I didn't say anything because we had a game coming up, and it was a pretty big game. I was a football player. At one point I got picked at because everyone said, well, if you say that around Clowney, you're going to have to fight. And so, I didn't say anything and I kind of let it go. And so he said it again, and I was like, I'll just let him know, like, that's not going to happen too many more times. And so then he said it 3 more times in a row. And I'm sitting there like, man, I'm in a tough situation. I really want to play the game. I want to help my team. But this guy's almost giving me no choice but to get into a fight right now. And so he said it again, so we start fighting. And so just I learned, from playing football that restraint that wouldn't have normally have been there was there because the guys I played with were important. I didn't want to let my coaches down. I didn't want to let my teammates down. I wanted to be there to play that game on Friday. But at the same time, I had my back against the wall, and I didn't feel like I had anywhere else to go. And so fortunately, I was able to kind of, my coaches kind of pulled me in and talked to me about, when I got there, when they came in office, all I was doing was pause. Like, Coach, I'm sorry. I just crying like a baby. And so, because of the restraint I showed, I was able to get grace and was able to stay in school and still play in that game. And just like that grace from coaches, bringing me in, talking to me about the situation, you realize that, I was trying to do things better. The school saw I was trying to do things better. My coaches saw that. And so, it proved to me that I could have some restraint in my life. And there were some things that were more important in life than me and my feelings and what was happening with me at the time. And so just being in that situation and just not just that one, but all of the different situations that I've been through that, a lot of times I really leaned on my coaches. Bill Owens, who worked for FCA for a long time, was my high school linebacker position coach, defensive coordinator. He coached me in wrestling. Shane Williams, who is the director of FCA right now, was our outside linebacker coach. So I'd always kind of had good coaches, and that's where you kind of see that FCA mentality kind of breed into me as a player, and then just able to kind of get that again here at Carson-Newman. Coaches at high school, they basically it was more of a don't get in trouble, do the right thing. And when I got to Carson-Newman, we really connected with, at a deeper level to it was like why you do the right thing, that Christ is the reason you do the right thing. Christ is the reason that you do get that grace. Christ is the reason that all these other things matter in life.
That's huge. And I mean, what a small world. Here I am, the president of the FCA for the United States is an outside linebacker coach, and I had no clue. So I'm going to have to make sure that Shane Williamson sees this video, and I'm going to email him the link to it tomorrow. So yeah, hey, they caught me. I didn't even know you played. That's you learn something every time you interview somebody. But yeah, what a group you just named of people that you have played for. And absolutely, I understand why you got into coaching now. When you play for Shell Dula and Shane Williamson and Bill Owens, and you come over there and you got Mike Turner and Coach Sparks, you have no choice but to be a good guy, So Carson-Newman University, probably one of the most storied football programs, top 5 in wins in the United States all time, doing it with Christian background values. Coming out of a place like that, what's your greatest memory? What's your greatest coaching memory?
I guess my greatest coaching memory is just learning that you can do it the right way and still be successful. Just kind of like those lessons that you learn, like Coach Parks come in, the first thing that we did during camp was, when I come on a recruiting visit, he talked to us about Christ. I got my very first Bible on my recruiting visit here at Carson-Newman, the Bible that I own, the very first one. Guy from down in Shelby, North Carolina, Johnny Smith, was on the team, and he hosted me as on my recruiting visit here. And long story short, man, we come here to have a good time, and we stayed up all night talking about Christ. And so that night changed my life. When we came back and talked to Coach that next day, I just wanted to know how to get one of them books everybody had. We always had the Bible in the house, but I didn't own my own. And so to be able to kind of get my own Bible and start learning about Christ and then connecting that to this game of football was something that I really cherish.
Wow, that's a powerful, powerful story right there on a recruiting visit at a national championship caliber school. And you're talking about Christ. And we know, I'm not even going to bash anybody on here. That's not our job, but you can imagine what goes on at a lot of other recruiting visits. And just to hear you say that's so powerful. Coach, I know when I played against Carson-Newman, they had 4 NFL players. Joe Fishback, Vernon Turner, Todd Collins was an all-pro. Robert Hardy is a running back. Those are just ones from when I played. And 4 NFL players from when I played against them. I know my junior year at Mars Hill, they won the national championship. And I know we got a local kid around here that just played on the Eagles roster last year that played for you guys. His dad's from Polk County, Dorian Miller. His dad, Pony, is my barber. And I'll give him a plug, man. The dude can cut some hair. But speak to some of the greatest players you've coached. I know that's back in the day, those guys I mentioned, but other than Dorian Miller, unbelievable wide receiver. Can you speak to some other ones?
Yeah, Dorian had a great career for us. Come here from Georgia military, man. He had the biggest hands I've ever seen. But just a great kid, come in and work hard. For us, I think the biggest thing that you look at, even when we go on the field today, whenever we get kids, they're not the most polished guys in the world. So when we get them, that's why I always tell them, if they're here, then something's wrong with them. Hopefully there's just one thing that's wrong with them. Either the grades weren't great, they were a step slow or a little small. If they're 6'5" and can fly and got great grades, they're probably going to Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky. So when they come here, something's wrong with us. Something there is wrong with them, and we have to work to develop them. And so we always talk about taking a 3-pronged approach. We talk to connecting spiritually, connecting athletically, and then connecting academically. And so it's been interesting that some of those guys that you talk about, the way that they got here. We had Larry Lumpkin that played linebacker for us. He's a unique story for us. Come here, played 1 year, and wound up getting picked up free agent, with another year eligibility left. I mean, just a linebacker that transferred in here. 2 guys I coached straight out of the gate when I finished college and went to coach high school. I coached Ricardo Hurley and Ricky Grant, linebackers down at Greenwood, South Carolina. Ricardo wound up playing at South Carolina and Ricky. And so, man, we had a ton of guys at Greenwood. Greenwood's got a ton of guys playing in the league now. We had Mark Logan, who wound up playing at Georgia Tech. We had Sam, who wound up playing at Middle Tennessee. So we had a lot of guys at Greenwood that we were able to coach. It's crazy, like a lot of those best players, we always think about the NFL guys, aren't really the guys that made it to the next level. That's kind of what I was talking about on the front end. A lot of those were those best players I see as those guys that come in that didn't always have the best talent, but they developed into being really good and functional players for you because they took the coaching serious. They worked to get better at the little things. They showed up every day on time, ready to work. And, like, those are a lot of times the guys that, to me, are the most fun to coach. Like, that guy that's got talent to go to the NFL, he's probably going to be okay. And we can still make him better. But, man, it's just interesting to see some of the guys that, aren't quite there yet just come in and do little things and develop themselves to get themselves a chance. We always talk about it. Be the best player you can be. If that's NFL, go to the NFL. If that's, a functional substitute for us, then be a great functional substitute player for us.
Well, you just described me. I was a good functional substitute at Mars Hill. And I tell people the older I get, the faster I was. But man, I was tickled death. One of your kickers, Drew Udy, actually was kicking for me my last year's at Hendersonville High School. And I just know that I'm sure you guys have made a big impact on him, because he's never had anything but positive stuff to say about you guys on the coaching staff. And I loved it when players could go there from this area. Noah Suber was a quarterback for you guys. When I got to coaching the Shrine Bowl, he was one of our quarterbacks. And I'm telling you what, I'll never forget Coach Sparks wanted to talk to me at one of the Shrine Bowl practices about Noah. And I thought he was going to ask about skill. And he didn't ask me one question about skill. Every question Coach Sparks asked me was about how did he treat the people serving you food? How's he interacting with his coaches? He didn't want to know. He already knew that. He knew that that's 1/3 of the sport. The mind and the heart's the other 2/3. But unbelievable right there. And while we're on that, talk about Coach Sparks a little bit. For those of you watching that don't know it, I think he's in the top 5 all-time wins in any level of NCAA. 5 national championships, Coach. That's who you played for and who you coached under. They named the building after him. He passed away not too long ago, and it was a sad moment for all of us that knew him. But speak about Coach Sparks a little bit and the impact that he brought to you, not only physically, but that FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, that Christ-centered coaching style that he brought to you, Coach. Speak about that.
I mean, Coach Sparks, just like we always challenge our guys, we aren't trying to be like everybody else. Our goal is to be different, be different in a way that's going to honor Christ. And I think when you walk into this program, when Coach Sparks was here, I think that's probably the first thing you'd say about him. Like, something's just different about this guy. Like he's just like kind of his demeanor, his spirit, just kind of everything about him. Coach was a good football coach, but I think the big key to his success was he learned how to connect with people, through their heart. He learned how to build and develop relationships. And so that was one of the big things that you'll hear anyone that's played here at Carson-Newman, they'll always ask that question, hey, how's your heart? How's your heart? And, that was the question that Coach always asked. And the thing that made him unique was like, you could always give it, it's okay or yes, but ultimately what it challenged you to do, he always challenged you to think deeper. He always challenged you to go deeper, and not just in football, but really with your spiritual walk. That's why I talked about coming in the first week we were here. I had already been to the recruiting trip. I talked to you about my experience there. But our first week on campus, we had practice, and every night, we had a speaker come in and talk to us, for an hour or so about Christ. And just to watch guys, in the first week of being here, get their lives to Christ, and guys that have been here years kind of come back and recommit themselves. And just everything that he did was really just Christ-driven. So when you go back and look at everything he did, I think one of the most unique things that we look at is when you talk about Billy Graham said the most powerful words is that Coach says. But what's super unique is when Coach and Christ are saying the same thing. When Coach says what Christ is saying. And I think that's the biggest testament I can give Coach Sparks. When I go back and look at my time with him here, the things that Coach Sparks said matched up and lined up with the things that Christ says.
Man, what a statement. I mean, that's a goal for all of us, Coach. If what we're saying and doing lines up with what Christ said and did, I mean, we can't go wrong. So that being said, what kids that are playing for you right now at Carson-Newman, what do you hope, if somebody goes and asks them 10 or 15 years down the road, what do you hope they're saying about you 10 or 15 years down the road? What do you hope those players say about you, Coach?
It's weird, I think if you go that far down the road, when you kids look back, I think if they could say one thing, you want it to be thank you. Because like when you talk about Coach Sparks and Coach Dooley, Coach Williamson, if I could tell those guys anything, 30, 20 years from now, it would be thank you. Thank you for taking time to go and teach me the right thing. Thank you for taking time to talk about Christ. Thank you for teaching us how to live, by being an example and not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. So I think that's, to me, like if you get those guys to come back and they can say thank you, Coach, I really appreciate what you did for us here. it's really helped me in my life, going forward. It's helped me with my relationship with my wife. It's helped me in my relationship with my kids. It's helped me, coaching my son's youth team. That's probably like the most important thing that you want to hear is you want to put guys in a situation where when they come back, they can appreciate what you did and said for them.
And obviously, this is FCA Coaches Corner, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I just want to ask you, Coach, what type of impact has this specific organization had on you as a player and a coach?
I think seeing Coach Park's blueprint for the program, I didn't realize at the time when I first started how much of FCA it was, because that's another guy you go and throw Dal Shealy's name out there that used to be president of FCA. Dal Shealy coached Shell Dula, who was my high school coach, and he coached Sparks, who was my college coach. So FCA's been all over my life, and I didn't even know it. But I think the big things is the most unique thing for me was, really getting involved with FCA. I always tell everybody I went to an FCA meeting here, and I'll never forget they had plates, and you put the plate on your back. And so what you do is walk around the meeting that day, and anybody that wanted to write something that they appreciated or something nice they had to say or that they thought about you, they would write it on that plate that night. And so you weren't allowed to look at the plate until you left and got back to your room or got back home. But just to, go and write things about people and then get back and look at that plate and just kind of see some of the different things that some people, I didn't even know they knew me. You just see who's writing on your back. It's like, I don't know who wrote it, but, some of these people, I didn't even know that they even knew who I was. But just to kind of to have that type of positive experience going to FCA really for the first time, it kind of encouraged me to go back. And so I started going back and kind of building friends. And then eventually, Wes Urey, who used to work FCA down at Baylor, was here coaching at that point in time. Wes called me one day, and over the summer, he said, Coach, going to Black Mountain. I didn't really know much about Black Mountain. He's like, going to Black Mountain, going on FCA. So I want you to ride down here with me. So I was like, yeah, I'll go ride with him. It ain't that big a deal. I don't have anything to do. And so, yeah, Coach, I'll ride with you. He's like, just make sure you pack a bag for the week. So I was like, I thought we were going out of the day and coming back. We went for a week. But we went down and we did a camp at FCA with youth. It was like junior and high school kids, junior high and high school kids. And, man, I had the most fun with those kids, talking to them about Christ. And I didn't think I had it in me at that point in time to be a huddle leader and really get out and talk to people about Christ. But, man, we had so much fun down there and talking to those kids about Christ, man. It was really encouraging to me. It was what I needed at that time, and I didn't know it. And got back, and it actually gave me the courage to be more of a spiritual leader here on campus with my peers. Because the big thing that stuck out to me was like, man, I went down there and I talked to those kids about who Christ is and what they should do to follow him. And I was like, I don't ever want to be a hypocrite. I need to go do what I said. So that was a really encouraging moment for me, just with those young kids. I would never see them again. And it was so cool that they would still call. I remember getting back and those kids would call and just talk to them on the phone. And so, just those relationships at that point in time were very unique and special to me, going down to Black Mountain and doing that. Just something I had no desire really to do. It just kind of happened. And then later on, like my senior year here, Tennessee does the college advance to where you go out. And I'd been a couple times and had a good time, and it was always fun. And I was like, man, I've done that. I'm not going to go this year. And so Coach Walls, who was our running back coach and was in charge of FCA, he had a habit of just kind of writing your name on lists sometimes. Coach Walls, like, I'm not going this year. He said, hey, just go. So I was like, Coach, man, I don't really want to go, but I'll go. And, man, I got there, and to my surprise, he put me down as a huddle leader. I was mad. I was so mad. And but I wound up jumping in and doing it. And the same thing, man, just re-energized me, it's from a spiritual standpoint. Because, like I said, if I'm going to say it, then I'm going to do it. And so just to get in front of my peers again and kind of be a leader, not just on our campus, but to start doing it with other college campuses out there. And just realizing, how unique we were here at Carson-Newman when it came to that FCA and the leadership part of it. Like, we were leaders in FCA when we walked off campus, and that was also it was just a unique, fun time that, Christ kind of challenged me with that I wasn't really expecting to do at the time. But, hopefully I rung the bell.
No, that's just any parents watching on here, or young athletes, what you're hearing right here is the type of people that you want to play for. And parents, this is who you want taking care of your kids, because that's what it's all about in the end, to send your kids somewhere that they're going to take care of them. And you can hear his heart right here. And I got down here. I went to the Carson-Newman football clinic for almost 20 years in a row. They had it every like at the end of March, and it was always FCA based, and it was for couples. So my wife and I went 20 years in a row. A Division II school now, in many years there would be well over 1,000 people in attendance, which you won't see at a Florida State clinic sometimes. What impact was Carson-Newman trying to make by hosting that every year?
I think, it goes back to Coach Sparks and his mission, and I think I think for him, it kind of started off a little selfish. He was married and he and his wife were having problems, and, they started just trying to fellowship with other people and other coaches and wives that were in similar situations. Because sometimes, we have that tendency to feel like we're out there on the island. In reality, we're all struggling together. We just got to start talking about it so that we get to the point that we can fight through it together. And so, that was really his vision as far as starting that clinic. He was trying to save his marriage. And eventually he wound up getting divorced, and later he got married again. But he always had that spot in his heart for coaches and their wives, because, the thing he always talked about, Satan always attacks us where he knows we're weak. And a lot of times as coaches, man, we spend a lot of time in the office. We spend a lot of time with other people's kids, and we don't do a good enough job sometimes of connecting with our own wives and our own kids. And so Coach wanted that to kind of be like a period of time to where, kind of like what you and I use it for now, to where you can just bring your wife. That's where we always like, why can't you bring the kids? Why can't you bring the kids? Well, that's where, and I asked him one day, he's like, well, too many times, we kind of let our kids get in our way. And sometimes there are points in times as a husband and a wife, we need to get away and be together. We need to kind of reconnect that relationship and connect that, make sure that marriage is moving in the right direction. And we need to kind of, send Satan off of our marriages and fight him away, because, while we're away, man, he will attack, and like we know he'll try to destroy us any way he can. And so, for coaches to get together with the wives, help the wives find a way to kind of find some other friends, people in similar situations that were Christian, that were going to be encouraging. And then coaches the same way, kind of get around other coaches that were Christian coaches that would want to be encouraging to one another. And even if the coaches weren't Christian coaches, just helping those guys realize that, there's another way of doing things, man. You can talk about Christ and still be successful.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, just from a personal standpoint, going to that clinic, it made an impact on my life and my marriage. And I look forward to it every year. And I mean, it got to the point where you guys had Bobby Bowden, Mark Rick, Coach Dungy, Coach Christensen. You had those kind of people coming to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, in the middle of nowhere, to a Division II football clinic, and they hardly ever talked about football. And while I'm at it, I was going to ask you, my favorite guest was, I loved all those coaches, but my favorite guest to this day, it was always Dr. Ferris Jordan, who would come in there. He's a comedian, Christian psychologist, and the stuff he would do, he had us, you'd go to your room laughing all night long, but you learned something too. So I was going to ask you who your favorite was out of all those. You
really, Ferris? Ferris is one of my favorite ones too, because he talked about the power of laughter. So many times we can kind of get in the dump and get, woe is me, and, this hurts and that hurt, and this ain't right or that ain't right, and we didn't win enough games. But regardless of what your record was when you went to that clinic that year, you knew Ferris was going to make you laugh. And it's funny, like, he made you laugh. He wasn't really a comedian. He was kind of just telling you the truth. and there's a lot of humor in that.
Oh, yeah. So any coaches out there, you guys still have that clinic, correct?
We do.
Yeah. So
that's because we're actually playing in the spring this year.
That's good. So can an FCA rep that doesn't coach anymore and his wife come coach?
Anytime.
Okay. So, well, I want to make sure I get an invite to that. So I want to finish up with a couple things before we get off here. I want you to give some advice to young players that they're watching this, or young coaches, and a little advice to some parents out there, Coach, before we get off of here.
I think the biggest advice that I would give anyone is, realize what God's given you and use it to the best of your ability. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're a young player that's going out, a lot of times we get wrapped up in young players get wrapped up in what college they're going to go. Young coaches get wrapped up into like what college or what professional team they're going to go to. A lot of times for all of us, it winds up being that advancement. It winds up trying to, figure out what that next level is for us. In reality, what we need to do is trust Christ. And like whatever he's given us, man, just max it out. And if that's enough and he's willing and he wants to, he's going to put us in the right situations to do what he wants us to do. And if it's not, then he won't, but he'll still put you where he wants you. He'll still use you the way he needs to use you. It just may not be a Division I school. It may be somewhere like Carson-Newman, which, I always wanted to go to Division I school. God, I know for a fact that God sent me to Carson-Newman for a reason. So I'm glad I was open. I'm glad I was willing. I'm glad it wasn't a situation to where I just had to do that for me. Because, a lot of times we kind of have a tendency to go out on our own and, we can't get shot when we're going on our own and God leaves us out there by ourselves.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, that's huge stuff. And I'm glad we were talking about that clinic. Before we get off here, I do want to lead into next week a little bit. We're changing it up on Coach's Corner a little bit next week. And it kind of stems from this Carson-Newman clinic with the coaches and their wives. And next week, we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to look at the other side of it. We're going to have Coach Kraft's wife, Jess Kraft, Gardner-Webb's head basketball coach. His wife, she leads an FCA coaches huddle down there with about 15 coaches' spouses. So next week, it's a treat because we're going to see that side of coaching from the spouse's side of it. So, Coach, before I pray us out of here, I do want to thank you so much for coming on here. And behind me, it says FCACoachesAcademy.com. It's totally free. And if you're interested in being a coach like Coach Clowney is, like Coach Dungy, like Coach Sweeney, I can thank Coach Clifton and Barnett at Mars Hill. I can go on and on and on. Those coaches that do it the right way, that are Christ-driven, this teaches you how to do it. It teaches you how to coach not only skill but heart and mind. We would encourage you to do that. Also, if you don't know Christ as your Savior, you can do that immediately. You can reach out to me on Facebook. You can reach out to Coach Clowney. Anybody watching this, just ask somebody and we can make sure that you have that opportunity to settle your eternity. But Coach, I'll pray and then I'll let you have a few closing statements and we'll get out of here for tonight. Dear Lord, I just pray right now for Coach Clowney and his family, for his football program, and for Carson-Newman University, dear Lord. I just thank you so much that we have men like that pouring and investing into the young men in our society, dear Lord. And we know, dear Lord, all the craziness going on, that's the only answer. That's the only way to solve the problem, dear Lord, is to invest in the next generation with Christ-like principles. And we thank you that Carson-Newman University is a place for that. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Coach, anything you want to leave us with before we get out of here?
Biggest thing I'd say is if you can't do anything in life, man, be where God wants you to be, doing what he wants you to do, the way he wants you to do it.
Man, that is great advice. Well, we're going to log off. We'll see you guys next Monday, and that will be our final episode for season 1. We're going to take a break during the holidays, and we're going to come back in the spring with a second season of FCA Coaches Corner. Thank you guys, and have a great night.